El seminario comenzará en breve. Por favor, permanezca en línea. La emisión está comenzando. Todos los asistentes están en modo de solo escucha.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to CPA Academy. This is Jason Bookman. I will be your moderator on today's webinar in the Accountant Entrepreneur Series from Bill.com. Today's webinar is the 7 tips to leading a virtual accounting firm. We have Jason Blummer, who's going to be presenting for all of you over the next hour. And before we get into today's webinar, I want to go through a couple of quick technical checks and a little bit of housekeeping, make sure that everything is working for everyone. So if you haven't already done so, let's go over to the GoToWebinar control panel, docked in the top corner of your screen. Inside that control panel, open up the questions panel. Within that questions panel, please let me know that you can hear me. Let me know that you can see the title card of the slides. While you're in there, let me know where you're listening in from. We love knowing where everyone is, and we want to make sure that GoToWebinar is working. So far, I see a flurry of responses coming in, a lot of people saying hi, a lot of weather reports, a lot of people checking in from all over the country, and I'm glad you're all here. Of course, if anybody is having any trouble seeing or hearing throughout today's session, let me know in this questions panel. Do the best I can to get around to all of your troubleshooting as quickly as I can. However, please keep in mind, there are a lot of you. There is only one of me. I will get around to all of you as quickly as I possibly can. Now that we know everything is working, let's go into a couple of quick housekeeping items regarding credit for today's session. Today's webinar qualifies for 1 CPE credit. That is the only type of credit today's webinar qualifies for. And the way you earn that CPE is pretty straightforward. We are going to have some poll questions throughout our webinar today, and you need to stay logged in for at least 50 minutes in addition to answering 3 of the 4 polling questions that we have coming for all of you. So the poll process is fairly straightforward. All of the polls will be announced. The polls will go up, and when the poll goes up, all you need to do is make your selection by clicking or tapping on the button that best corresponds to your answer and hitting the submit button on the GoToWebinar poll box. Please make sure that you hit that submit button. Otherwise, you will not have that poll count towards your credit. So make sure you hit submit. Those of you on mobile, you may need to hit that submit button a couple of times. If you are on a mobile device, we strongly recommend using a strong Wi-Fi network as opposed to mobile data. As a known problem with using mobile data for these webinars is that you may not have your polls recorded. And of course, we would not want that to happen. We want you all to receive credit. We want you to all learn something from today's session. So we're going to use those polls and your time logged in to issue credit, which will be done by our team here at CPA Academy by the end of the day today. And that will be available in your CPA Academy accounts within 24 hours, along with an archived copy of today's webinar and a copy of the handouts. Those handouts are also made available to you in the handouts section of the GoToWebinar control panel. Just click through in that handout section to download the handouts so you can follow along with those at home or refer back to them in the future. Before we get into our presentation, I am first going to turn things over to Jeannie from Bill.com to say a few things. So Jeannie, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeannie, part of the team here at Bill.com, and I wanted to welcome you to the 14th and final webinar in our Accountant Entrepreneur series. At Bill.com, we often hear from our customers and the accounting community about the challenges you face every day in adapting to a rapidly changing world, one where technology like ours continues to change the landscape of how you do business, and it changes what your clients expect. Bill.com is one of the backbone pieces of the puzzle in your success. We streamline your AP and AR processes to make it easier to do business. This program was created to help you thrive through all the disruption and really focus on the value you provide your clients. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jason Blummer, CEO of Blummer & Associates, which is one of the first firms to move from a traditional office to a virtual environment. There isn't a better person to present on our topic today. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Very cool. Thank you guys for having me. I love doing this work with Jeannie and Bill.com. Of course, our firm's been using Bill.com since 2012, at least. probably earlier. 2012 is when we went virtual as a firm. So my dad started our firm in 97. And so then I came in 2003 and started leading the firm. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey when I started that process and kind of some of the results. But at the end, I want to answer some questions. So I'm going to try to leave about 10 minutes towards the end so I can make sure we have time for questions. So that's a little bit about me. We have a podcast, the Thrivecast, you can listen to. We've been running that podcast. We just went through our 100th episode, and we launch an episode per month. And so my co-host Greg Kite and I have been doing that for 8 years or so, I think. And I run a firm with my partner, a virtual CPA firm, and then run Thrival, a consultancy with events and programs, incubators, entrepreneurial boot camps, things to help people really run their firms better. So before we get cranking, let's dive in. We're going to do a poll question. So I guess, Jason, you'll launch those poll questions. We just want to learn a little bit about what you guys think about a product like Bill.com and how you do bill pay.
All right, so that first poll question is up right now. The question is, does your firm provide bill pay for your clients? We are going to leave this poll open for a little less than a minute. We want to make sure you all have the opportunity to get your responses in. So we are going to leave this poll open for a little longer, and I'll jump back in with a quick countdown when we are closing this poll down.
Of course, this poll question is about AP, but we use Bill.com for AP and AR. So we use it for both sides, AP and AR. Most of the time, if we do any kind of work with any controller clients, of course, we're virtual. We have to run controllership-based clients on a platform like Bill.com. So we do all of it on the whole platform.
All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and close down poll question number 1 in 3, 2, and 1.
Sweet. Okay, thank you for doing that. Now what we're going to do is dive into, really just to give you some context for virtual. I mean, y'all, there's over 600 people on this webinar. So becoming a virtual firm is really, really hot now. It is a huge trend. So just to give you some context of what we did and went through and why, I'm going to give you a little bit of an experimental journey through lead my own virtual firm, kind of how we got there. Before we do that, we want to go ahead and hit one more poll question. We want to get these done. So Jason, I'll let you launch that one too.
All right, poll question number 2 is now live. We're going to leave this open about the same amount of time as poll number 1. So everybody go ahead and get your poll answers in. We're going to leave this open for just about a minute. I'll give you a countdown when we are closing this poll down.
Now this will be interesting. We're trying to find out if you're ready to lead a virtual firm. Are you doing that? How far along are you? So this will be a really cool, this will be cool to see the results of this poll.
We are nearing our poll threshold, so I just want to let you all know we're going to close the poll down in about 10 seconds. We'll share the results of this particular poll with the audience when it is concluded, and that will happen in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So here is how our audience voted. 43% says you're starting to think about it. 23% are not sure where to start. And we have a nice split between aiming to be virtual and already operating as virtual. So we're going to hide those results. Jason, back to you.
Very cool. Okay, so that just showed us, so a quarter of you don't even, you don't know how the heck to start virtual. Listen, I was with you when we did this in 2012. There weren't cloud products. We had to figure out a phone system online. That did not go well. So people didn't call us for a little while. So a lot of it happened, but we went through that journey to kind of help you. So a quarter of you are kind of wondering where to start. About half of you are thinking about it. So that's a pretty big deal. And then, about a third, you're already virtual and you're running as a virtual firm. So you guys are experiencing what it means. I'm going to give you some theory and some depths to what we went through. First, here's kind of what I went through when I started going virtual. Really, again, started leading the firm with my dad in 2003. It was a brick and mortar firm. We were a generalist firm. And I came into the firm and started copying the last firm I was at. And then I thought, why the heck am I doing that? I don't want to copy anybody. I'm not a person that wants to copy typically. So I learned how to start, feeling comfortable with making up something and trying that. And so there was this experimental thing I had to embrace and get used to. And that's what led eventually to going, I wonder if I could just run a firm that doesn't even exist, which is kind of wild. That's what a virtual firm is. So I had to go through a process of trying new things and then learn how to safely create firm models and what firm models mean. How does a team model support a firm that doesn't exist? That is, and when I say that, of course, I'm being dramatic. It's a firm that's not visible. And so if there's something not visible, you have to do a lot of work to offset the fact that you no longer are visible anywhere physically, and you really only have a digital presence to people. And so it's really important that you figure that out. So I went through some ups and downs of learning what experimentation looks like and finally figured out, all right, so there's some things about firm models I've learned. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, there's probably 30 million things I've learned, but 7 of them I'm going to share with you today. So here's a little bit of the specifics of our firm model. So we're a full value pricing model. We operate as an advisory firm. And so we have, for a team of 12, we have about 30, grown into about 30, probably 38 clients over the 2020 year. That's kind of what we're looking to grow. So we can add about 8 to 10 clients a year. And so we require that they come in to a contract situation where they sign up a 12-month contract. We draft our prices on the first of every month with every client. That's required. And again, we don't have any offices. Now we have a co-work space. My partner and I have a co-work space that we work in sometimes. I work in it daily. She comes a few days a week. We work in it together. Some of our operations team is there, but outwardly to our clientele, we don't have offices. We don't have places that they can come to. And so that's an important part of, do you want to have a virtual firm or not, is really becoming invisible. So if you said right now on your client list, if you said, I'm going to be virtual by January 1st, 2020, you actually probably know the list of people who would not stay your client. And that is true. And you have to know that if you transition from a brick and mortar firm to a virtual firm, there is going to be some percentage of clients will not go with you. And we knew that too. And so we actually packaged those clients up and sold them. And then kind of what we did is when we did it, when we became virtual at the same time, we went ahead and contracted on. We became a business firm. Basically, we said we're only going to focus on companies. And so we agreed to only contract in the name of a business. We don't serve individuals. Now, we do individual tax work for the owners of our business clients, but we wanted to set ourselves apart in our market. And we do serve creative digital design and marketing agencies. That is our exclusive niche, and we've had that for many years. We do coaching and consulting and advisory capacities with them, and controllership and things like that. So we're a growth firm, basically. We want to help people grow. So they have to want to grow when they come in and purchase services that will help them grow. So let's dive in. Now, one thing about these slides, the way I wrote them is it's a lot of text. So the slides are here as a handout. So you definitely want to use the slides as a handout. And I'm not going to read through them. So I'm just going to go over various points, briefly in each section. So you can get the high level, but make sure you read through the slides because there's a lot of text. And I'm just not going to read stuff to you on a webinar. I don't like to do that. So, and I don't like it when people do that to me. I'm not here to read slides. So, all right. So 7 tips. I'm going to tell you 7 tips, 7 things we figured out in going from a brick and mortar to a virtual firm. The first one was realize the importance of culture and building and sustaining team cohesiveness. So it is important that teams stay together. That's true for brick and mortar and virtual. In a virtual world, that's much harder. You do not automatically bump into people, see people, nuance their way around how they're feeling. You don't get to ask them how their weekend was. You don't get to build that culture. And so you have to do all of that on purpose. And when you do, you actually get better at building the loyalty and care as a result of building this cohesiveness. Basically what you're doing, just like in a brick and mortar firm, you're building culture. You're doing things that build culture. And healthy cultures really make firms healthy. They make companies healthy in general. But when you're virtual, man, you have to go out of your way to do this. And so things like weekly team meetings and in-person retreats, this stuff becomes required. Because you get all the touchy-feely seeing people in a brick and mortar every single day of your life, and you don't get it in a virtual firm. And actually, this point too is something we've learned, that creative teams like firms, like CPA firms, the teams, and probably in a lot of companies, the teams are always drifting away. And what we mean by that is, especially in a virtual world, you're invisible to your team. You're in your home, typically. You're in a home, probably in your pajamas, right? Beside your laundry. And that feels really comfy, cozy. And so what people tend to do is they do pull away and drift away from the culture. And so in a virtual world, a leader is always there trying to sustain culture by pulling people back to the center. That's what they're doing. They're reminding people, and this is really weird. My partner and I had to learn this. We have to remind people that you have a job, and there's people in this job. You have to interact on purpose. You have to set up calendar schedules to make sure you remember to go post in the water cooler room and comment on people's pictures that they just posted from Thanksgiving. This is the stuff you have to do in a virtual firm if you want a healthy culture. And so what you're trying to do, just like in any company, you're trying to build a safe place. And you want a safe place, because when you build a safe place anywhere, I'm talking about virtual, brick and mortar, doesn't matter. Anytime you have a safe place, you have a safe culture, the team members feel safe, and trust becomes a result. And when all of that's in order, and this is a great place that people want to spend their life, you can go grow. You can grow your company. And I'm saying building a culture and sustaining team cohesiveness in a virtual world is super way harder than we ever thought. We had no idea. And again, I launched on this before my partner. She was working with me at the time, but I launched into this, and she really is a team-focused person. And I just like, go team. Hey, we shut the door, turn the key, and I'm like, go team, let's have fun. Man, they drifted away. And we had to start really intentionally building culture. And man, it works. We saw it turn. But it is an activity that you're going to have to do that goes on your calendar. Tip number 2, realize that virtual processes are not the same as brick and mortar processes. And good grief, this blew our mind. We didn't realize that processes are nuanced. We didn't know that. So that means there's a lot of steps built into a brick and mortar process that you cannot have assumed in a virtual process. Let me give you an example. Here's what we did. When we went virtual, we used the exact same processes we used in an office. And so let me give you a real example. When we finish a tax return for a client, what we would do is we would call them, and they would come by the brick and mortar office and pick it up, right? And when they picked it up, sometimes one of the CPAs would come to the front and go over that return with them. And then they're standing there at the desk, and then we would get payment for that money too. So we didn't even realize, okay, the process in a brick and mortar was log it on the sheet and call people to come get their return, okay? That was the step. Now, 4 things happened in it, right? You logged it on the sheet, you called the client, you went over the return with them, and you got payment for it. All of that is built into really one process. And that's because you can kind of work your way around that, okay? When you're in an office with humans, you can scream down the hall, hey, did you call John? Tell him his return is ready. So did you call him? And they can scream back, yeah. Those are processes. People are yelling down the hall, and you don't even realize it. And let me tell you, when you get a whole bunch of clients into a virtual firm that used to be brick and mortar, you want to talk about chaos? Like, I'm giving you an example, and you're like, okay, so make 2 more steps in the process. Well, the thing is, you get a year into it, you don't even realize what you've done. And I'm telling you, what we learned so you don't have to do it. When you go into a virtual location where nobody sees you, every process has to be laid out, defined, step by step. There cannot be any assumptions, or you will confuse your team, you will confuse your clients, and you'll end up going, and this is what happened to us, hey, 10 people didn't pay for their return. What the heck, man? So we didn't even get our money because that was not in a process anywhere, because they just happened to do it when we were going over the return with them. And it kind of blew our mind. So what you have to do is strategically design processes. You have to design them, and you actually get to design them in ways you don't in brick and mortar. You get to make them so strategic, order them correctly. You get to make things clearer. You get to communicate more clearly. Where you have confusion in a brick and mortar, virtual forces you to be clear. And when you bring clarity to a firm, you actually become more valuable. And when you're more valuable, you start to make more money. That's what happens. So a brick and mortar really lets you be strategic in doing that. And then just like in brick and mortar, virtual firms should always be updating their processes. Processes are never complete. They're never done. That you're always learning stuff, right? New clients teach you new things. New team members teach you new things about processes that they learn to do more efficiently. And so you're always updating because team and clients bring new color to these processes. And of course, you want to do that in brick and mortar too. But this color you're adding into processes is hugely important in a virtual firm. And I think it makes virtual firms even stronger, honestly. Okay, this third one, realize that hiring requires vetting new employee beliefs and how this blew our mind. This freaking blew our mind. So we're like hiring people, right? And we're hiring people into a virtual environment. And we're thinking they're going to freaking love it. People are going to love to work in a virtual firm. We had no idea that people walk into a firm with beliefs about work. And you don't even know this because most of the world, at least most of the Western world, have always gone to offices, right? So they go to offices. So everybody mostly has this context of an office environment, right? There are shows about how funny and sarcastic an office can be, right? It's just, there's context around an office, right? You got the weirdo down the hall, you got the loudmouth, you got the person that chews their gum too loud, and somebody who talks on the phone when they shouldn't, when they're in the bathroom, weird stuff like that, right? So you have this office context, basically. Well, those are beliefs people have lived through. And when they come into a virtual environment, it is so weird. You have to address the beliefs of their work. You have to explain work clearly. We actually say, here's some things we say in hiring. We say, a virtual job is a real job. I can't believe we say this. We say, a virtual job is a real job. We also have to say, a virtual job has hours. You actually have to go to the office. We have to say that because people don't act that way. Now, they always go, of course, but people don't behave that way at home in their pajamas with their dog and their laundry. I'm telling you, you don't either, and people don't, and you don't realize it when you hire people who have beliefs about their work, and their beliefs were established by some office they've been going to all their life or something they've been reading online. And so it's so weird to talk about the beliefs that this is a real job. You have to come to the office. And this is really hard when team commit to a job and they commit to a certain number of hours and salary, whatever it may be. Those hours they've given to us, right? Those are really, they have volunteered those hours to us in exchange for pay. And so those are really our hours. We get to guide them and lead them, right? But now, if we're working with a team member and we're saying, I don't want you doing that, I want you to do this. Here's how I want you to review that. And they're like, wait, you can't tell me what to do in my home. Listen, this is weird because I'm at home. We're like, you're not at home. You are actually not at home. You are at work. And we had no idea that people had these beliefs. It was so wild to figure this out. And another thing we learned is that in a virtual environment, people have to self to manage themselves more than people do in a brick and mortar. Now, I think that's always a good skill to have, right? You have a job and you manage your work, right? You come up with ways to get your work done efficiently, better. You want to please the client, please your boss, whatever it may be. Now, in a virtual world, it is more important, the skill of somebody managing themselves. And I'm going to tell you what gets in the way of that, what clouds that. And again, there's a lot of things that are not clear in virtual worlds. That's the problem. There's a lot of things that are not clear, and smart leaders are out to make everything clear, crystal clear, stupid, dumb clear. I'm talking about, hey, this is a job. You have to go to work every day, and you have to produce work every day. And you can't disappear. These kind of things are things you have to say. And so people are self-managing themselves, and the cloudy thing is they're at home. They could be sitting beside their Christmas tree or whatever, doing the same thing with their family that they're going to do on some holiday, while at the same time work for you. They get confused because of that. And I'm telling you, this is something that really we've had to be super clear about. And it's hard. It's hard for people to try to get that. And again, I mentioned this, but we have to remind people that virtual work is a real job. But they don't view it virtually, so they don't show up. They actually do. They do things that poor employees would do, right? They'll disappear, or they'll disengage from the team, or they'll not show up, or they'll just ignore firm policies. And why? They're at home. They're like, I don't know. I do what I want at home. And you're like, actually, you don't. You don't do what you want at home. And so it hurts the team member when you let them think they get to do anything they want. All right, so Jason, let's jump into another poll, and we're gonna talk about what's preventing you guys from becoming a virtual firm.
All right, poll number 3 should be available for everybody to answer. Go ahead and get your answers into poll question number 3. We're going to leave this open for about a minute, and I'll give you a countdown when it's time to close this poll down.
Hey, Jason, one question that came in regarding tip number 2 was, how do you document virtual processes across the company?
Yeah, you definitely need I would say you need some kind of tool, right? So capture, that's what my partner we have soaked our team in the word capture. There's never a time they're speaking or on a webinar that they're not writing. So you capturing is a key to being successful in virtual. So processes have to be written. You can find tools that manage processes. We do all of it in Google Docs. Everything's shared and managed and documented in Google Docs. And we do processes in spreadsheet docs. And we have tabs for various processes. So that's how we do it. But there's a lot of complicated ways you can do it too.
All right, I'm just going to jump back in here and close this poll down. That'll happen in 3, 2, and 1.
Very cool. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, let's dive into tip number 4. You guys send in questions because we want to answer these, and we'll give you all the hints we can about the things we've learned going through the ups and downs. All right, so we realized, here's tip number 4. We realized the importance of training around the software used to manage and push work through a virtual firm. So, and this brick and mortar firms have this too, but here's the thing. You can do a lot of things manually, and sometimes there are things in brick and mortar where manual is better. I mean, you can actually fill out a process faster and it's more efficient. And if you're going to stay, a visual firm where people can come, sometimes paper right there is a way to run that smoothly. But virtual firms, they run 100% on top of technology. So some of you know how good is your brick and mortar firm's workflow technology? Like, does it capture every single solitary piece of work that is pumping through your company? And most firms do not do that, right? Most firms could say, well, our tax season runs on technology pretty well, but our audits, they're not digital. Well, in virtual, tough. You can't do anything like that. Everything is going to pump through some kind of software. So training on software is a key to success in growing a virtual firm. So now So now what does onboarding new team members look like? For us, it looks like 6 months worth of training. And solid parts of that are technology training. And training them in our workflow systems is really, really good. Something you have to do. And so also teams, you can give workflow technology and you can give processes to one person to manage. And so they have to adopt habits to manage this workflow technology. So not only do you train workflow systems and using it, you actually work with the team members. At first, you work with them on a weekly basis, helping them with the habits. Like, remember, we talked about, you said in your virtual world at home that every Tuesday at 9 a.m. is where you're going to go update the workflow system. And you were going to go brainstorm the new ideas you had for processes. And you were going to capture those in our online office. So did you do that? And if they don't get into these habits of updating software and managing software on their own, if they fail to be proactive, to stay involved in their the training of their workflow, they'll quickly spin out of control and not be able to see their work. Because remember, in a virtual world, most things are not seen, and things that are not seen lead to very confusing activities. So that's why brick and mortar sometimes can be so clear. It can be better sometimes, right? Because you see people, you see processes, you touch them, you feel them, and that really brings a lot of clarity that you don't realize you operate without when you go into a virtual world. Now, one thing that's really hard is choosing a workflow product, right? This is super, super important. You guys know, all of you have struggled with choosing the right software product. It is hard. Some of them go from super simple to complex. And here's what we learned. Workflow systems, that is systems that list work out, assign it to team members. You can check it off as you do it. And other people can see an admin or some kind of firm-wide dashboard view to find out how far are we with the whole firm's set of work. That's what you want a system to do, basically, those few things. But you know what? Workflow systems don't do everything, and they are built by people that have beliefs and philosophies about how work moves through companies. That is why they're all so different. And that's why it's so hard for you to adopt somebody's workflow system that you didn't build. It's because they built it around how they believe work pumps through a company. Now, okay, so who are these teams of technology people that built these workflow systems? Well, they could have all worked in offices all their life. And so they have some context of a world that's brick and mortar. Or what if somebody built a workflow product that was specifically for virtual companies? Well, that's a belief system if they've worked in a virtual world. So what you're going to find in any workflow system, and this is why training is so key, because one team member coming from one firm into your firm is probably not going to have used the workflow system at another firm in the way they're going to use it with you. It is so key to really you have to adopt their philosophy. You have to get to a point where you're going to be like, all right, this workflow system just doesn't have everything we want it to have. And you know what? That's tough. You can't have everything you want. So it's often true, especially in a virtual world, that you're gonna use a workflow system, but it's just not going to give you everything you need. So you have to manage some of those other views and the things you need to manage your firm in a spreadsheet or a document. Typically, that's what you're going to find. And again, you cannot write that on paper because you're not brick and mortar. Because anything you use a pen to create, it means your whole team cannot see it. And that's starting down the road of confusion. And confusion will kill a virtual firm. You need clarity, crystal clear clarity. That's how you stay healthy as a firm. That builds a beautiful, wonderful culture. And staying clear around workflow systems is a lot harder in a virtual firm. Now, listen, my partner and I would say it's worth it. So I'm giving you some tips. I don't want you to hear that I'm saying don't do this. I'm just saying know what you're getting into when you're committing to be virtual, and do it, because guess what we get to do as a firm? We do not care who we hire. We can blast out a hiring thing all over the United States. We just don't care. We only work within the United States. We don't do virtual or international work. So we want to hire people that are within the continental United States. But we do not care where they are. We don't care how they travel. Sometimes we'll hire military spouses, because military spouses, they travel and they're just as smart as anybody else. So, but they know they can't get jobs locally. We don't care. They just move around the country, and we just do not care. Now we have to work with them closely as they move, right? Because that's an issue that can be distracting. That becomes a personal distraction. So we get to hire anybody, anywhere. Our clients are not geographically based, right? Our clients are all over the U.S. Actually, it's funny. Our co-work space is in the place where we live, which is Greenville, South Carolina. And we don't have clients in Greenville, or really, we have a few clients in South Carolina, but just not many. Geography is just completely gone. It doesn't matter anymore for us. And we love that, right? We love to be able to choose and pick our clients. There are no barriers to any client that hits our website. Geography does not have to be a barrier. Why? Because we have wonderful, clear, beautiful processes that are going to help our clients stay clear and understand the value we teach them and give them, through digital tax returns, portals, stuff you guys know how to do. So tip number 5, realize the importance of human leadership in the project management function of a virtual firm. So project management is something we kind of made up. So the creative digital design and marketing agency space, they all have project managers. Every one of the agencies we work with, they all have project managers. And most CPA firms or accounting firms do not have project management. And so we went down the road 8 or 9 years ago, probably, beginning to play with this function of project management and what it means. So we've learned that teams really do struggle to manage themselves in a virtual world. I think teams struggle with this in brick and mortar too. So, but people struggle to not only do their work, but prioritize and manage the work in relation to the value of which client's work should be done first. So it's hard to sort through that for a team member. They just need to be doing their work, right? But a project management function is a function that's always high level, global, looking at all of the work of the firm and looking at all of the priorities and being a gift to the team and helping them prioritize their work and know where their work and the push of their work fits into the whole system of this whole firm. And so this project manager becomes this, not an all-knowing person, but they are a person who needs tons of context. And that's this next bullet point. So as we've done this in our firm, either a project manager, which is kind of a management position, or a project coordinator, which is an assistant kind of position, we've found, and we've kind of played around this, can you hire a project coordinator outside of an accounting firm, bring them in and have them manage the full global view and push of work through an accounting firm? And we learned that that's not true. It's really helpful if you bring one of the accountants that's on your team and you promote them to a project coordinator or a project manager role. And these are things you can learn about. Julie and I, my partner, we teach these things at our Thrival Incubator, this 2.5-day, entrepreneurial boot camp we teach. We get to hang out with 15 to 17 entrepreneurs that are running firms and teach them these kind of methodologies we've learned that it's taken us 8 years to learn. But the context of this project, and if you want to know more about our incubator, you can go to thrival.com and click the incubator button at the top of the website. And that's where we teach those kind of things. So we've learned so much about project management, and we consult with firms too, and we help them install and put project management coordination into their firm, because it is it is a super embedded thing that you do with firms. We've learned that project coordinator and project management, this third bullet point, is really, it's a one-on-one care type of role. So the context of this person, this project manager that maybe you've promoted from an accountant position, they actually come in and learn so much about the firm and the movement of all the contracts and whose value is what. And they're meeting one-on-one typically. Now, sometimes project manager or project coordinator, that's the PM or PC. Sometimes the PM or PC will meet one-on-one or no, sometimes they'll meet in groups. Like the project manager will work with the tax team, right? The 5 people on the tax team and say, all right, guys, you know, these 10 clients are huge and 3 of you have those 10. So y'all, come on team, let's make those our big push and priority. We know they have particular issues. They want to pay early, but they cannot extend. And so that project manager is kind of giving them that insight. And for a project manager to have that kind of context, a lot of times it's the owner. It's an owner that's doing that role at first. And that's kind of how we did it. We had, my partner did it. She kind of carved it out and crafted it. And we learned what it was. And then we handed it to another person. And now we're handing it to a different person. We're learning even how to hand this role off and how it makes us so important. So a lot of times we'll work in groups, but then the project manager often has weekly rhythms, weekly team meetings where they'll work one-on-one with a person and go, how are you doing? How's your work? Are you overwhelmed? What are you struggling with about the priorities of your work? These are leadership type things we had to learn to teach a project manager or a coordinator. And this role really brought a lot of clarity to our team. They could really lean on this person. They could ask questions about where do I go put this new step in the process. These kind of things are things a project manager and coordinator can keep up with. And another cool thing is that a project manager and project coordinator, they're this person that can own the thing that's so important in a virtual world, which are captured written processes. You have to do that to the nth degree in a virtual world, and this person can own it. The software that pumps all of these tasks through the company, that project manager, project coordinator can be the person that owns all that. So then they start to own all the passwords, right? So there's this one person, and then they become the admin person on all of this software. So now you guys know how confusing that is in your firm, right? It's like, who's the admin? I don't know. Is it you? Hey, Tom, were you the admin? Who set that stupid software up? It's like stuff we don't know. The project manager coordinator role becomes this capture role that gets all of this virtual knowledge and it packs it into a role that really this person can now manage all of that movement in that brain space. And people who need to do tax returns don't need to keep up with that stuff. And that's really super helpful. All right. Tip number 6, we're going to keep trucking because I want to make sure we have time for questions. Realize a leadership team is important in a virtual firm too. Leadership teams, they're important really in brick and mortar or virtual firms. But we have learned that virtual leaders lead in different ways. I think you could probably play around with what some people call a flat organization where there's really no managers. Everybody's like in this together. And you can kind of nuance your way around that in a brick and mortar firm because you can see people and kind of scream down the hall, is that getting done? But in virtual world, people need clear lines of accountability. Who do I go to? They want to know, who the owners are. What do the owners believe and think? And what the owners believe and think has to be said and spoken over and over in very clear ways. So leadership becomes super important in a virtual firm, just like it is in brick and mortar. But again, virtual leaders lead in ways they can't lean on nuance to lead. They can't, look at people and go, I don't know if I would do that. You're not actually talking to somebody. Typically, when you're typing out and writing to people in a virtual room, you're doing a lot of writing because no meetings and speaking happen with anybody, not the team, not clients, unless you've planned it up front. It does not happen automatically. And so leaders can lead less people in virtual environments too. So we found that. So, and again, that's this nuanced understanding in brick and mortar where you start to get to about a team of 6 to 8. That's where you start to really, that's where one owner starts to break down and really, they fail to be able to lead and guide and touch every single person and help them. And so that's when you start implementing a leadership team, typically around 6 to 8. And it's and that might start with a project coordinator where that person starts helping you manage the flow of stuff you just can't keep your finger on anymore. But a leader in a brick and mortar firm can lead probably a bigger group of people because they can walk around, see people and know people. But in a virtual firm, again, leadership is it's written. Communication is asynchronous. And so if you haven't heard that word, that is a complete word that will blow your mind. In a virtual firm, leaders have to lead in asynchronous ways. And that basically means information happens this way. Clients send you something, and then they have to wait on you. They have to wait on you, the firm, and your team when the firm's ready and the team's ready to compile the answer. And then they send that back, right? You do that over email already. But in a virtual world, inside the team, that happens with the team too in an asynchronous way. In a brick and mortar, you've already been doing asynchronous communication with your clients. But in a team, you automatically flip everybody to an asynchronous method. And so we have found team that we've hired get frustrated. So they come in and they're like, God, I just want to get my work done, right? I'm trying to get an answer from John, my team member. Well, John is virtual. He's running his life and he's running his life and work through his own personal life in a way that he's just not available to you yet. That's not his hour. So you have to post things to John, and then you have to wait and go on to something else and come back to the thing that's not done until John gets back to you. In our firm, we've built a heavy collaborative firm. That is, every client is served by 3 people. And the project manager or project coordinator is one of those 3 people on the team. So none of them can actually fulfill the client's contract without collaborating together. That creates huge amounts of asynchronous posting, waiting, doing, waiting, posting. And this becomes such a frustrating experience. So, but it becomes habitual. You start to do it. And if everybody's doing it, you get into a sync of how to do it. And so leaders have to lead in asynchronous ways. And that can be super frustrating for people who are not used to doing those kind of things. All right, last tip, number 7, realize the importance of the firm's vision and values in leading virtual teams. Vision and values, this is something my partner and I teach in the incubator that we run every May and August. But basically, a vision and values is an annual reminder. Basically, it's annually reminding the team, what is the mission we're on? And what you can do is in brick and mortar, you can see the vision nuance, right? You can see the partner go do something and you start putting things together as a team member. You're like, who is that new client? And why are they talking to them? And so they start to put stories together in their mind. Oh, I wonder if we're going to start working with that kind of client. I've seen 2 people come in here, and you're just seeing things happen. But in a virtual world, nobody gets any of that unless every single year, my partner and I sit down and have a vision and values presentation. We remind our team, hey, you're part of a team. We have a vision. Here's our vision for 2020. We're going to be releasing that here pretty soon for our team. And it's an update to our prior year vision and values. And we give them the themes for how we want to run and grow in next year. And you have to remind people on an annual basis, because you can't nuance your way around leadership in a virtual world. You have to say it. Everything in a virtual world has to be overt. Everything is overt. You can't nuance anything in a virtual world. And a lot of people just don't like that. They don't want to take the time and the care it takes to write, capture, speak, make videos. I mean, you can't just think it and go, hey, John, what do you think about this idea? No, you have to package it, present it, write it in a clear way so that a team can respond and ask you questions and give you points to add to the points you've created. So the capture becomes a huge deal. And again, the second point that I've already alluded to is you want to do it at least annually. You want to continually remind that and it's so weird. This is something, we found out. You have to remind the team that they're part of a team. You have to say, hey, remember, you're part of a team. You're part of a firm. We're doing valuable things. You're not seeing it, but people are paying us money. Your salary is being paid by clients. And it's just wild. If you're sitting in a brick and mortar, you see the clients come in and out. You feel who they are. You get to know them. But in a virtual world, you have to really make an effort to get to know the first name of these people. That's why we have such a small list of clients. We want to know them all, and we want to work very deeply with all of them. And so that last sentence in the second point is keeping teams on the same page must be overtly stated. You cannot do anything that's not overt. Overt meaning it's just stupid obvious, right? You got to be stupid obvious in a virtual firm. And some people, that just drives them crazy to have to do that. And so we've been talking about vision and values. This last point is about the values of the firm, the core values. So what we like to say is the vision or the purpose statement is your statement to the world to say externally to your potential clients, hey, here's who we are as a firm. Do you want to be part of us? Do you want us to serve you? Or your core values, we like to say, those are how you live out your external vision statement. The core values are how you live that out internally with your team. Core values are really a team concept. And it's okay to put your core values on your website, but your core values are not for your clients. Those are for your team. It's like these are your behaviors that determine a healthy firm in our firm. This is what we say. And so we always give our vision and values presentation actually to new team members. We think that's real important when we onboard them. Actually, when we're going through the hiring process, before we hire them, we have 2 different meetings to share our vision and values with this team member and saying, we just want you to know when you're coming in here, these are the things you're going to have to believe. And man, when you get a team together that all believes the same thing, man, you're all marching in the same direction. You can conquer any kind of hill. You can do any kind of growth because teams just drift away. And again, especially in a virtual world, they're just going to go do their own thing. That's what they do. That's what we do as humans. We're individualistic, especially in the West. It's like only what I want to do is important. And so you have to teach them how to be part of a community and a group and how to value other people's diversity, how to value somebody else's opinion. And man, you got to state that overtly. So do you see the last sentence in every one of these bullet points? The first one up there is sharing a vision must be overtly stated. The next one says keeping teams on the same page must be overtly stated. The third bullet point is values must be overtly stated. So everything's overt and captured and written. So, okay, we're going to do polling question number 4. We got through all 7 of those. Now we're going to do some questions and answers.
All right, the 4th and final poll question is now live. We're going to go ahead and leave this open for just about a minute. Everyone get your responses in, and we're going to close this out in a little less than a minute.
And client advisory services in this poll question is what we call controllership services. So it can go by a lot of names. It's just doing a whole bunch of work for that client to run their whole virtual system, really.
Jason, is your team mostly employees, or do you have a mix of employees and contractors?
Man, that's a good question. And that's wild. Everybody asks that question. That's such a good question. And we require, according to our vision and values, that we only hire employees, W-2 employees. So, and we go further and say, you have to commit only to our firm. You cannot work at another firm and work at our firm. And that's just to fulfill our vision and values. But yeah, we don't hire any contractors. That's not wrong. That's just our firm. That is not a wrong way to do it. I'm just saying that's just mine and Julie, my partner's personal preference. Good question.
And when you are doing your hiring, do you have them take a personality test, or do you think that there's any correlation between how people's personalities are and how they would do as a virtual employee, just because that level of trust has to be there, and they have to manage their time better?
Yeah, good stuff. John, I don't know if you want to close down this polling question while I answer.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll down in 3, 2, and 1. Poll number 4 is now closed.
Okay, that's a cool question. Yeah, we do. We give our team tests, actually accounting and tax tests. They have to take a test. So just to make sure they are what they said they are. We do personality profiles. We use those as guides to help us really nuance our way around the person and who they are. But we actually use a lot of nuance when we're hiring. I think you should, because hiring is super difficult. So it's really hard to outsource hiring to other people or outsource it to tests. You have to look at them, talk to them, see how they answer questions, put them in different settings, we put them on camera. We take them off camera. We call their cell phone. Sometimes they have to log in with Zoom, sometimes go to meeting. Like, we're going to do all these things to kind of put them in situations. And, is their lighting okay? Do they look like a vampire in a dark room? This kind of stuff teaches us so much. And you have to put them through the ringer in a lot of different ways. But you're still always talking and listening. You just can't outsource hiring to those tests and things like that. So, those are good questions. So questions to ponder on your journey, and then we'll answer other questions. And I think I would love, Jeannie, if you could look through those questions. I mean, you've already fed me a few. I wonder if you can help me find those in the midst of all the posting. I just want to post a few questions for you to consider. Are you considering leading in a virtual firm? Why or why not? Are you ready to build a virtual firm with specific details listed in this webinar? What things will you have to give up to be able to lead a firm? Now, that's an interesting question. There's going to be things you're going to have to give up to lead a firm in a virtual way. And it's nice to know what you got to give up before you do it. And will all of your clients and team members be able to transition to a virtual firm? The answer to that is typically always no. Your current client, and probably some of your current team members cannot work virtually. If you're considering leading a firm, what do you not enjoy about a brick and mortar firm? That's important to know. And will your value proposition be more valuable if you are virtual? Why or why not? And how will the structure of your team need to change as you become a virtual firm? And will you need to change as a leader to be successful in a virtual firm? So I wonder if we have time just for a few more questions.
We do. So we did get a lot of questions as it relates to pricing, and I wanted to share with the audience that Jason actually did a webinar a few months ago all about pricing, which I strongly encourage you guys to check out. We put the link in the chat box, and then we will also follow up via email with a link to where you can access all this content. Another question that we got a lot was about where to find talent and how to grow the team. And we also have a session completely dedicated to that, hosted with Amanda Aguilar and Jeff Phillips. So make sure you check that out as well. And a few other questions that came in. Do you have any tips for someone who's looking to join an existing virtual firm, but they don't have a client base yet?
Okay, so they want to join us. Well, I guess we have to assume they mean they want to join as an employee.
Correct.
I guess, yeah. Well, I guess if you're wanting to be one of our employees, as an example, I'm not saying this person does, but if you were to approach us to be our employee, we would want to see that you have some skill or recognize the need to self-manage yourself in different ways, in that you have to be a little bit more of a self-starter. Because you can't sit there and wait on people to tell you what to do, because you don't know, you can't see anybody. You don't know what they're doing. So sometimes you don't know they're working or not until after they haven't worked. And so I would want to display myself as a person. I have shown by my resume that I can go do things on my own. I've done projects on my own. I've worked virtually. Working virtually could be a tip or a hint you'd want to tell somebody if they're stepping into a virtual environment. I hope that helps.
And as a virtual firm, do you find that you've gone completely paperless in how you operate your business?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. So you don't have a choice with that, but that's a great question.
Another question that came in was around the workflow, and for an office that doesn't have an official workflow, where would you recommend they start as they try to build that out for a virtual firm?
Yeah, I guess I would start simple. So you don't want to jump into a complex system unless you have to, right? So complexity really creates confusion, and man, virtual firms cannot operate in any kind of confusion successfully. So keep those processes really simple. And what defines whether you can be simple or complex is really how big your firm is. So the more firm, the more team, the more complex your services, then the more complicated you need your system to manage all that. But if you have a simple, like what we do, like we work with 30 clients. They're all the same. They're service-based, every one of them. So they're all S-corps. Like all we do is S-corps. So man, we can bang those things out, easy. There's no tricks to it. Service is what we sell, not really a tax service. And that may not be true for somebody else. They may have all kinds of different complicated tax clients and needs, and a lot of different tracking related to those complex tax systems or needs for different clients. So your systems are going to need to be more complex. So start simple, do it in a Google Doc or a Word doc that you can share if you have to, if you can, and get more complex from there.
Great. And one last question. We're almost out of time. Who are the key people that you would suggest hiring first as they start to build their practice?
That's really good. Well, I think as a leader of a firm, as you start growing, there are things only a leader can do. And so for the first, 6 to 10 people, at least, the owner's going to do all the selling. They're going to do the networking. So I would say who you're hiring are people to do the work. What you're handing down most easily is defined by a process, which is you can hand down accounting work, payroll work, tax work. That's the stuff you can hand down faster. And you don't have to start with a fully dedicated team member. You can start with a person who might start out as an admin bookkeeper type person, and they just start to help. And then they stay admin, and you hire an accountant, and the accountant does all the accounting and payroll and the tax. And then you keep growing, and you hire not only an accountant, but a tax person. Now you put all the tax onto the tax person. So you kind of expand and grow. So keep your roles general as you start, and then you get more specific in your roles, like tax specialist, accounting specialist, as you get bigger. That's when you can narrow the scope of these roles, because there's more work to be bunched into a role called a tax specialist, as an example.
Thank you.
All right.
We're out of time.
We are out of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. First, I want to thank Jason for presenting. I want to thank Jeannie and everyone at Bill.com for bringing today's webinar to all of you and for the entire Accountant Entrepreneur series. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for your time and attendance. We're going to wrap up real quick because we're just over our time. We're going to process CPE by the end of the day today. That'll be in your account within 24 hours. Everyone can send in their full webinar evaluations via the link in your email or that same link in your CPA Academy account. Thank you all for your time and attendance. We hope to see you all on future webinars and hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.